Happy Thursday, everyone. Hope everybody's staying dry through the storm. And tonight we are discussing contracts. Before I get into this, again, my Friday Nights with Phil has started, so I will be here tomorrow at 6:30. The doors open at 6:30, so don't be late. Get here early. It helps us all. So, all right. Tonight I want to talk about contracts, spiritual contracts. I know I've discussed it in the past somewhere along the many videos that I've done, but I want to talk about it this week because it has been a topic that has come up many, many times throughout my readings. So, and I want to just give us just a basic background on our spiritual contracts, because one of the biggest questions I get is why? Why? So before we come here to earth, we design a contract, and in order for us to do that, we have to choose the family that we are going to come into. I know, I've said this before, we choose our parents, we choose our families that we're coming into, but we choose this based on specific things. There's people out there who say, Phil, I had an amazing childhood. There's people out there who say I have a rough childhood, or mediocre childhood, an absent childhood, whatever the situation is. But before we get to earth, we design specific things that we want to come to earth to accomplish. Why it's a fear of speaking, relationships, children, whatever the situation may be. All our contracts are unique, every single one of them. They do not overlap, meaning that no two contracts are alike. They're similar in some ways, but they're never alike. So here we are, we're all on the other side. We're with our family members, parents, siblings, whoever it may be. And we decide that I'm coming back to earth. So our parents may go ahead, or let's just say that you have a family down there. You can also say, I'm going to jump into this family, even though you've never incarnated with them before. So you decide that you're going to come into earth. Phil decided that he was going to be born the last out of all the boys, and he was going to grow up in Northern Ireland, Belfast. Now, anybody may say, why would somebody pick that contract? Why didn't I pick a contract that was, I live with millionaires, and why wasn't I a princess, and why is that? You cannot take anything to the other side other than knowledge. That is the primary purpose we come to earth. So regardless of your financial status, it does not matter. When you get to the other side and you go through the soul review, it's not going to matter how much money you made. So I decided that I was going to come into Northern Ireland, I was going to be the youngest of these boys, and I was going to come into this chaotic environment. Chaotic in the sense that at that time Ireland was at war with the British and blah, 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 blah. So I grew up in a very difficult household, meaning that I was on the Catholic side, and the Catholic side had no protection, and so you always had some sort of something pointed at you, a gun or whatever it may be. And people ask me, Phil, why would you choose that lifestyle? All of these things have gotten me to where I am today. But through that contract, I had put in specific hurdles that I had to address. As I've talked about this before, one of them was alcohol. So when I was 19 years old, I've never said this to anybody, at least not live anyhow, I woke up with a taste of alcohol in my mouth, 19 or 20. And at that time, I'd never had a drink in my life. And I could actually taste vodka. So my guide's name is Isaac, and I said, what is this? And he says, this is part of your contract. It'll be one of the hardest things you ever have to overcome. And I'd never even had a drink. Fast forward several years, I have my first drink, and within several years, I'm full-blown alcoholic, and thank God those days are behind me. That was part of my contractual agreement that I had to overcome. Now, that happened prior to me meeting Jasper, so it had to happen that way because it would never have worked out otherwise. So had I not have accomplished that, I would not have met Jasper. If I didn't meet Jasper, then many other things wouldn't happen. So what is this whole purpose of a contract? What is it about? It's not about coming here and simply paying the mortgage. They're earthly things. The contract is about our spiritual self and what the things that we need to overcome and grow through. Now, you didn't come here to try things that you've already mastered. So if you're an artist, you didn't come back to earth to be an artist. You would come back to earth with a challenge. So you have set up specific challenge, inability to speak, inability to communicate your feelings or allow somebody to be affectionate to you, fear of public speaking, whatever your situation may be. And that right now, I'm turning this up to make sure my volume works. And that right now is part of our spiritual contract. So Phil, how do I know what's my contract and what's life? and I always tell everybody this, it's the thing you don't want to do. That's how you know it's contractual. The things that we want to do, we've already mastered. So we'll try to go around this. But no matter how many times you skip around a situation, that problem is going to jump ahead of you and you're going to be faced with it. So you could be 10, you could be 20, you could be 30, you could be 40. It doesn't matter. It's going to continuously be put in front of you until you overcome it. So, or address it face on. So how we know that something is contractual is when we don't want to do it. And not wanting to do it would be like, I didn't want to do Facebook Live. I mean, anybody that knows me knows that I have anxiety about public speaking. So, but I knew it was contractual for me. I knew that I had to do it. So it wasn't a matter of giving in. It was a matter of saying, I have enough knowledge now about myself that I can do this. I can sit here on Thursday nights with you guys. So that was one of those things I overcame. I also had trouble when I had to do large groups. So like when I do the St. Jude's event, the bigger that got, the more anxiety filled I got. And then my guide said to me, Phil, it doesn't matter if there's 1 or 1,000 people in the room. You just simply do you. So that was another lesson I learned in my contract was I had to learn to be me. I couldn't conform to the things that other people wanted me to be. So, and yes, as parents, we want our kids to do well and we want them to go to school and we want them to get great jobs and whatever the situation is. But at the same time, there had to be an authentic self to me. And who I was didn't necessarily fit the mold of what you would want your kid to be. So, I'm Northern Ireland, Irish Catholic, gay medium. So it's not exactly like, top of everybody's list, when they want to say this. But I mean, that was just the facts. And then I also, I grew up in the church. So that was a major problem for me about what I did for a living versus blah, blah, blah. And that's a whole nother situation. But our contracts, the reason why I discussed this is people ask me, and I'm going back into some of the questions that I asked is, Phil, why are some contracts long, meaning that the individual is here for a long period of time, and are some contracts are short? Some are medium. And the purpose of that is, depending on the situation, is kids can come into the world for a short period of time knowing that they have an illness, knowing that they're being born into this because they're saying, I'm going to come in for the next 5 years and at least my illness will help advance medicine in one form or another. The same thing with mental illness, the same thing with diseases. We all know we're coming in with these things. So none of us get out alive. And I know that's very difficult for some of us to hear. The other thing is too, is that when we have children that are disabled, that soul knows it's coming into that body. Some of the most enlightened souls I've ever met in my life are disabled children. I mean that. And the truth and the reason being is they're not contaminated by humanity. Nobody's imposed their negative will on these little souls, so they always stay very bright. And every time I see them, their aura is very beautiful and filled with love because there's nothing there to imprint on them to make them something that they're not. So being a part of your authentic self allows you to get connected with what is your contract and what are the things that you have to do. This contract can be long or short. We never really know what it is. But part of what our living is, we have to live as best we can on a daily basis. Again, not about trying to make a paycheck, but trying to spiritually evolve in the best way we went. As I told you guys last week, I got a little crazy and I went to the pound and adopted a dog. Jasper and I did. And it was actually a fantastic decision. But my gut kept telling me to do that. And the people that are close to me, I said, I need this right now. Don't know why, but I need this in my life right now, this particular animal. And the moment that it happened, everything just fell into place. And I'm like, check, get that off the contract. Now, you may also have a fear of heights. That's just simply because you have a fear of heights, not contractual, unless your job is up and you're running cables and doing things like that. So you have to also know what is, just simple humanity stuff, and then what is spiritual stuff. And again, the way to know if you are supposed to overcome something is when you absolutely don't want to do it. I mean that you would rather scrub toilets than go out on the dance floor and dance. I mean, you would rather do anything than get up and give a public speech. You would rather, run for the hills than stand up and in front of everybody and get married. Whatever your situation is, It's that if your gut tells you, hey, we have to address this because it keeps coming up. Another thing that happens to people as well in their contracts is, Phil, why do I attract the right and or wrong people? So, and therefore I always get into these messy relationships. And it's because your contract is trying to tell you, hey, you have to be able to speak up for yourself, but most importantly, this type of person is not healthy for you. This type of relationship doesn't bring out your authentic self and your true self. I see a hand. Go ahead, Jasper.
So what if I have a general fear of dying? Came from Dawn.
So what if I have a general fear of dying that came from Dawn? Dawn, I'll tell you this, you're not getting out alive. So most people fear the type of death that they're going to have. The unknowing, the part that you can't control. Fear is based on lack of control. So if I can't control this situation, I feel fearful. If I don't understand this situation, I feel fearful. So having a fear of dying is actually very rational. Most people have it because they don't want to leave behind their families, so on and so forth. So that would be an earthly thing. That wouldn't be a contractual thing. Let's get that very clear. So it's just, that's an earthly fear versus contractual fear is things that are going to spiritually evolve you. Go ahead, Jasper.
Linda wants to know, do we have to come back? Because personally, I don't think I want to.
Linda, you do not have to come back. We choose to come back, believe it or not. See, what happens is when you get over to the other side, you go through the soul review. The soul review then reviews what you accomplished and what you didn't accomplish. So it looks at, hey, you did fantastic on this, but you kind of failed on this. And in order for you to want to evolve and elevate, you may want to try and work this out. So you don't have to come back to Earth. You can stay on the other side for as long as you want. But in order for us to evolve, we have to come back to Earth because it gets a little boring being in paradise, believe it or not. Go ahead, Jasper.
Catherine wants to know, do we die after we complete our contract, or can we stick around for a while and enjoy our time here, or keep learning?
So it's a good question, Catherine. So after you complete your contract, your time is up, and depending on when that is. So, you know, hopefully it's a long time, but it's not that way for everybody. You'll only remain in the soul form on Earth for a short period of time, and then you cross to the other side. Most souls don't stick around. They want to go over there and check on how they did. So it's and again, they're called to that white light, so it's only natural for them to do that. Go ahead, Jasper.
So you say that we choose our own families. Do we stick to the same bloodline?
So do we stick to the same bloodline, meaning that we choose our families depending on how the family goes? And the reason why I chose this topic tonight is because everyone keeps asking me, Phil, why did I come into this type of family, no matter what the circumstances are? And you came into that particular family for either one of two reasons. You were either passing through, meaning that there was a certain lesson that you were going to learn, and that family had it to offer. And that's why some siblings are extremely close and some don't have any relationship at all. It's almost like they're strangers, because that's just two souls passing through. So, or you have a particular set family roots where you've incarnated with these people before, or these souls before, and you decide, this, I'm going to come back now and we're going to try things differently, or I like the way things were and I'm going to keep it like that and continue to try and work on these other things. Go ahead, Jasper.
So what happens if I don't fulfill my contract?
What happens if you don't fulfill your contract? Absolutely nothing. So you get to the other side, and I don't mean to sound so blunt, but you get to the other side, and you say to yourself, what did I accomplish? And you look back and you say, I missed out on this, I missed out on this. So in order to go from level 1 to level 2, you have to accomplish certain things in your contract. Meaning that if you sat here and you drink away your life, you're going to get to the other side and say, I did absolutely nothing, meaning the reason why I came to Earth. So it's important that we try to push ourselves through things. But there's no punishment if you don't fulfill your contract. So there's no, oh, you got to get sent back. You're not forced back. You choose to go back. So, but it's unlikely. There's not many people I've ever met who didn't fulfill a contract in some sort of way. There's a lot of souls I've met that have crossed over who's, actually I had somebody in today and just, they were passed and they were just saying what an awful father they were. Just, I mean, they kept going and going. I'm like, really? You want me to repeat all this? And he just kept, he was just trying to just come clean because he had gone through that soul review. and he had realized the havoc that he had wreaked on his family's life. I also get this with a lot of mothers as well. Oh, I shouldn't have done this, I shouldn't have done that. Go ahead, Jasper.
Does a soul get extra credit for choosing a particularly difficult challenge in their contract?
So does a soul get extra credit for choosing a particular lifestyle? So, okay, so everyone's going to go, what about the children in Africa? That's what everybody says to me, is why would they choose that contract, but I choose this contract? Listen, it's all about the lesson, so there is no extra credit. The only way you would choose a more complicated contract is because you've had a previous life before that has geared you up to be able to do a level 3 contract. You couldn't do a level 4 if you haven't evolved from a level 1 to a level 4. I don't know if I'm explaining that right. So hopefully I am. Isaac's nodding at me, so I'm assuming I am. So you wouldn't come in at a higher level when you haven't evolved through these certain things. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's essential that we do grow in order to continue to evolve. And so you wouldn't choose a hard contract because you wouldn't be able to accomplish it. But if you've had many lifetimes on Earth before, it would be a breeze. And you've also met those people that nothing bothers them because they're old souls. Old souls come here and they are absolutely unfazed by anything because they've seen so much of life and humanity and everything that's happened with that. And then we have the new souls, me, other people like me, where everything's exciting to us and we get ourselves into all kinds of trouble. And then we have our very grounded souls, where they come in and their job is to keep people stable, and they're throughout the world in the millions. So, and they're just the loving, caring, balanced people that you can go and you can have a cup of coffee with or whatever it is. And then we have creative souls, who are just absolutely unbelievably talented, but also wrought with emotional distress. And part of their contract would be to keep the emotional distress under control so that their gifts can continue to come out. So it all depends on who the individual is or what it is. But contracts are the only reason that we come to Earth. And yes, I can intervene or interfere with somebody's contract. If you impose your will on a child, you can alter their contract. So, meaning that if your kid wants to play football and you won't let your kid play football, you're going to alter that contract. It's just that simple. So, but the main purpose or the main reason why that individual came here is still going to have to face the things that they had to face. So, why do contracts matter? They matter because what we want to do is help each other through these contracts. Just because you do something different than I do doesn't mean that I can't be friends with you. It doesn't mean that we can't be, know each other. Each of us came here for many, many different reasons. We did not all come here to be rock stars. It's just that simple. So I don't know a rock star that got over there and said, hey, I was a rock star. They come over there and they say, could have done this, should have done this, did well in this. Again, no one ever talks about, I made millions of dollars once I got over to the other side. No one. I've heard souls tell me they're successful, but they've never said, oh, that was part of my list. Go ahead, Jasper.
Michelle says, that's what I feel, that I'm here for peace and kindness. Can that be my contract?
Mm-hmm. Our contracts are two things. They can be very simple, or they can be very intricate, or they can be very circuitous, depending on what you want. But some of us just come in here and they're like, you know what? This one I'm taking easy. I'm just going to blow through life. I'm just going to, be a librarian, and I'm just going to chill out. And whatever the situation may be, I'm just throwing something out. And then other people come in and they're like, this is going to be a hard one because I'm new to Earth and I'm going to take on a whole lot of challenges. And let's see what happens at the end of this here. I'll just keep taking it on. And then there's people who are absolutely frozen once they come to Earth because they can't overcome or master some of their insecurities or whatever it may be. But then we have people, souls on the other side, who say, hey, Phil, you and Brendan, whose name's popped up there, are going to meet at such and such a time in each other's lives. Hey, Phil, you and Jasper are going to meet at such and such times in each lives. Hopefully by that point you'll have reached a place in your lives where you can continue your contracts. So, and again, had I not have followed through on my end, then I wouldn't have met, all the other significant people in my life. Go ahead, Jasper.
Catherine wants to know, do first-timers tend to have simple contracts?
Catherine, shouldn't you be studying right now? So do first-timers tend to have simple contracts? No, not at all. So a first timer coming in, everything's new to the first timer, so they're fearful and they're frightened. So it's hard to get them motivated. You'll notice with kids that, like my kid doesn't want to do this, Phil, or is terrified of college, or is terrified of going through school or sports. First timers is difficult because they have zero experience. I mean, you're coming to Earth with no knowledge whatsoever. So their contract is a little more complicated, but they're excellent at what they do if they apply themselves. That's the difference between first timers, is that they don't know is how creative and how brilliant and how bright they are because they have nothing to compare it to in a previous life. So that's big.
So are you saying that no contract is simple?
I'm saying that on average, no contract is simple, but for first timers, they have nothing to base their contract off. So it's a little more anxiety ridden for them versus somebody that's been here 3 times.
How does the soul choose the challenges that will be in their contract? Is there a negotiation process?
So there's no negotiation process on the other side when you say, what am I want to overcome? So let's just say you came here, you wanted to study music, or you wanted to study art, or you wanted to be in medicine, or whatever the situation may be. That's the contract, right? You're coming to Earth, and I have to overcome certain things in order for me to become a doctor, to become a lawyer, to become a scientist, to whatever the situation. And answer that last part of the question again, Jasper?
Was there a negotiation?
There's no negotiation. You decide that, hey, I'm coming to Earth and I want to be a scientist, or I want to be, a librarian, or I want to be a medium, or I want to be a mother, or I want to be a father, or I simply want to be a sibling. Again, it's not all glamour. It's just very simple stuff, because it's the simple things that help us evolve through each other's contracts. That's the things that matter. I often hear souls that call out to another person, could you just say thank you to that person sitting in the room that helped me through a certain stage of my life? And those are the things that count. Go ahead, Jasper.
Karen and Sherry want to know how suicide plays on contracts.
So, I wanted to do a whole special on timely death or suicide, and everyone kind of is like, but so here's how it works. I've been reading a book recently. A woman wrote about her son who took his life, and it is his suicide note and so on and so forth. It's actually quite interesting. It's a letter she wrote every month to him about her grieving process. So if you end your contract, there's 2 things. Your contract can be ended because mental illness, number 1. Your contract can end because of drugs and alcohol, which throws us into psychosis. And your contract can also end because some people just decide, this is too hard. I cannot do this. I don't have the resources. I don't have the energy. I don't have whatever. It does not change where we're going. And listen, guys, you can all tell me that you burn in hell and blah, blah, blah. But long before religion, mental illness and everything else existed. So every soul that I've ever met, and I just did a reading for somebody today where their loved one had taken their life, and they just said, Phil, I was in psychosis. I mean, I was completely in, I was hearing voices, I was schizophrenic, I was blah, 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 and I just didn't want to suffer. So I asked them, so how do you feel now? And they say, it's the most peace I've ever felt since I was on Earth. So we can't judge somebody for ending their contract because we have not been in their shoes, and always remember that. It's easy to look in and say, how did you not know? How did you not see? How blah, blah, blah. Until you walk in somebody's shoes, it's important that we don't judge, because most people who are in depression hide it. Go ahead, Jasper.
Sorry, I'm getting flooded with questions.
Me too.
Don asks, I feel like I'm not able to talk to you because my dad is not okay.
I feel like I'm not able to talk to you because I don't understand the question.
I'll move on. So
Yep.
I have one from Rita asking, can you tell a first-time contract person versus a reincarnated person?
Oh, yes, I can tell a first contractor from somebody who's been here many, many times. People have been here many times. It's easy for them. It's not easy for them. They just take things like, oh, yeah, it'll work out. Don't worry about it. The sun's coming out tomorrow. Versus first-timers are very intense. And they're very, very edgy, and they're like, I don't know what's coming next, and they're very panicky, and they're very anxious, and they're very worried, and all of these things. So you can always tell if somebody's a new soul or if somebody's an old soul. And then what happens is, we're new souls, once they find their stride, boom, they're off. They're off and sailing. They're in good spirits. Go ahead, Jasper.
Pam wants to know, what if there's a specific person you want to have a new life with?
What if there's a specific person you want to have a new life with? If it's contractual, it's going to happen. Here's the other thing, as I said this before, you can have your human emotions and your spiritual emotions are two entirely different things. So the human emotion, the body wants to be fed emotionally, mentally, physically, all that. Spiritually, the soul wants to evolve as much way as it can. So let's just say you're having a moment, you're like, I'm in love with somebody else, but I'm married to this person. Really, really ask yourself, is this part of your spiritual contract, or is this part of our human feelings right now? Am I looking for a quick fix, or is this something that really I'm supposed to be with that individual? Go ahead, Jasper.
How do I know if the hardship I'm experiencing in this life is a part of my contract or a sign that I'm on the wrong track?
So if you're on the wrong track, what happens is you keep trying to get shifted back to somewhere where you don't want to be. And then we go over here, and then if we're on the other side keeps trying to bring you back. And they keep shifting you back because they're like, hey, stay on the path. You don't have to be in the weeds. Because even if you're in the weeds, you're still walking the straight path. They're just saying, come back over here, face these things, because it's much easier than what you're going to face in the reeds. Go ahead, Jasper.
Can a married couple come back together again in the same roles?
So can a married couple come back again in the same roles? Yes, if you so choose that way. What happens is, again, you have two different families. You all talk about that on the other side. You say, I'm going to try, we'll meet up with each other again. Hey, listen, if the contract deviates, I may not meet you until after my first marriage, so on and so forth. So it's never clear cut like, oh, I met the love of my life and here it comes down. Each time that we evolve, we get there through many, many different paths, but it's never just a straight shot. Go ahead, Jasper.
Can my loved ones help me fulfill my contract?
Yes. Can our loved ones help us fulfill our contract? 100%. And then there's things in the contract that the only person that can get through it is you. Meaning that there's not people can encourage us, but there's certain things that we just have to face on our own. And one of the things that I talk about often is the inability to speak our truth or our voice, use our voice chakra, our throat chakra, is I don't want to speak my truth. I'm afraid of upsetting people. I'm afraid of going through that. So that's something that you would get through with the help of somebody, but ultimately you have to give yourself the worthiness to feel that my voice should be heard. Go ahead.
How does the other side play a role in my contract?
How does the other side play a role in my contract? They try to keep you on your path. The best way for anyone to visualize their contract, think of it as a yellow brick road. And the reason why I say that is, as Dorothy went through that adventure, she met several things along the way. The first was a scarecrow, crown chakra, he said, I'm going to be your guide. The second was the Tin Man, heart chakra, love and passion. The third was courage, the cowardly lion, the throat chakra. But they were all encouraging her, Dorothy, no matter what the witch tries to say, no matter what the negativity is over here, let's get to our goal, the Emerald City. So the Emerald City is the end goal, meaning that our guides will always keep us on our track if we're listening. But they're also incredibly patient, because if we don't want to continue to evolve, they'll just sit and wait. So it's important that we know that too. The other side can't make you do something, but they can certainly encourage you to do it. Go ahead, Jasper.
Do you feel our loved ones reaching out to you as we communicate with you?
Say that again?
Do you feel our loved ones reaching out to you as we communicate with you?
So yes, so as so what happens is, right, if you're in the office with me, your family immediately comes in. And like when I'm here on Friday nights, it seems rude, but I don't sit with people until I get ready to start, because as soon as I'm in the room and your family sees me, they'll start talking, and then it'll interrupt the process. So, but here during this, because I'm not focusing on anybody's names, I'm not able to read you over the air. But if we were doing FaceTime or phone reading, then I can absolutely focus on you. But this I don't look at what people are writing, so I'm not able to bring the soul through. I'd imagine if I looked at it, I would be able to. Go ahead, Jasper.
Why would I agree, I'm sorry, this came from Jody. Why would I agree in my contract to get as sick as I did and all I've gone through?
So why would I agree in order to come into a contract that had illness? And this is a hard thing for people that they struggle with, because I've gone through this myself with my mom, is some people come in with these illnesses because it's going to help advance medicine. Meaning that we know that we're coming in with this particular illness, and the medicines that we're using in order to try and cure these diseases helps the world and overall. Now you may say to yourself, why on earth would I choose that? Because you had to choose something. There's nobody that I know ever in all the years that I've done readings who has come to earth with no problem. Everybody comes with something, a disease, a disability, or some sort of situation. And no matter how perfect it looks on the outside, I guarantee you there's something on the inside that you just don't get to see. Everyone has a complicated contract. It just may not be complicated to you, but it is to the individual. That's why we want to support one another rather than criticize one another, or rather than say that, oh, it's not really that hard. Unless you're in somebody's shoes, you don't know what their contract is. So what I would like everyone to try and do for the week is try to listen to your gut, try to see the things that you have to overcome and or address. And most importantly, look at what is spiritual versus what is human, what is emotional. I'll see you all next Thursday. Stay dry, stay cool. Thank you all for tuning in. Have a great night.